Hello and welcome to another Royal Reviewer video, and of course welcome to my home. Today I've got the gingerbread herbal tea out in my Royal Reviewer mug. Yes, it's that season where, and as you've noticed, I've got the pumpkins and fireplace on the go. Also, you might be able to see him, I don't know, but we are joined by my cat Rory. So yes, let's get into today's video without further ado. So I've got lots of things to talk about in this video, and the topic that I want to start with, I've got written down a kind of short list, but I've got written down Harry and Meghan diminished position and what their attendance at the Kevin Costner fundraiser actually showed. And I think it's rather important to discuss this because I think lots of people are attacking this from lots of different angles. And of course, we'll talk about what happened at the event, but I want to talk about the wider implications of it and what it actually shows for Harry and Meghan's position now that they have stepped back. And it's been a few years since stepping back. So we're actually, and also that the pandemic is over. So we're actually getting a real picture of what Harry and Meghan's position now looks like. No one can sort of throw in, oh, well, there's the pandemic and therefore things are quiet, or they can't travel, or they can't do this, or they can't do that. That's kind of, you know, as over as it's going to be. And what we're actually seeing now is a true reflection of Harry and Meghan's position. So they attended the Kevin Costner fundraiser, a private fundraiser, and on his sort of sprawling estate. I think it's a big area of land next to one of his homes somewhere. I don't know the full details of his logistics, of his living operations. But anyway, he's got a lot of money. He's currently going through that well-publicised divorce. So he's holding his fundraiser and he invites Harry and Meghan as honoured guests. And I looked at it and I thought, actually, let's just talk about what happened first, then we'll get into the whys and what fors. So they turn up and they sort of waltz in like the honoured guests that they are, almost like a pseudo royal visit. It was kind of odd. One of the things I have said since they stepped back was, you know, are they going to be sort of creating this almost second royal court, but in America? And it seems like with that particular visit, kind of, yes, they were. So sort of in they swanned, security in tow. And having met with a few people, I think they met with firefighters and other things going on. Then they sort of went on stage, and then there was that incredible moment where Meghan kind of walks across the stage and there's a lady with a microphone. Now, the lady, to be fair to Meghan, she was holding it out. She wasn't sort of holding it to her chest, and she wasn't holding the microphone down by her side. She was kind of almost offering the microphone, but Meghan's eyes lit up at the sight of a microphone and the fact that her voice could be boomed out to all these people and the whole world to hear. So she obviously went to grab this microphone, and the lady was like, no. And then there was that really awkward moment when Meghan realised the error that she had made, and actually that she wasn't expected to speak. And she kind of withdrew and kind of tried to style it out as best she possibly could, only it didn't really work because everyone could kind of see what's going on. Harry didn't make that same mistake. But it just kind of goes to show, you know, we saw Meghan at the Invictus Games sort of bearing all with her legs, well, bearing what legs she had got anyway, and with those big shorts and the legs sticking out. Of course, legs stick out from shorts, but you know what I mean. They were most definitely on show, shall we say. And we saw another example of kind of on show at the Kevin Costner fundraiser because she was wearing that coat, that kind of big wintry type coat, and people that were actually there at the event have said and confirmed that it was hot. I mean, over in the UK, you know, you think, oh yes, it must be cold because it's cold over here. In fact, we're expecting a storm, Storm Agnes. And you'd think, oh, well, maybe she's just wrapped up warm. But actually, no, apparently it was quite hot and warm. I'm not sure of the exact temperature, but apparently quite hot and warm. So she was definitely showing off this kind of coat. And she has sort of worn warm, oversized things when it's been hot before. So it's either one of the few things. It's either she just runs cold and therefore even when it's hot she wears big baggy comfy things, or she's again displaying being a walking clothes horse. Maybe she's had the coat donated, maybe she's trying to promote a brand, that kind of thing. So I think it's one or the other, but apparently it was very, very hot. So going back to the microphone, Meghan kind of walked in, just, you know, that kind of joy, the joy of the communication that I think she so enjoys. I mean, just imagine the joy that she must have felt of the anticipation of hearing her voice being boomed out to all those people over a microphone. It was too tempting, and, you know, out came that hand, even though there had been no mention of being expected to speak a few words. Anyway, Harry didn't make that same faux pas, and of course he handed out, I think he handed out an award or something. Which brings me to their diminished position. So we have to remember that although they are kind of trying this pseudo royal life, oh, they also did a bit of a walkabout as well. Incredible, I know. Anyway, we don't even know if they got paid to come. Honoured guests, but were they actually paid? Don't know. Anyway, or did they even contribute to it? I mean, I'm asking that as a question because I genuinely don't know. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is their diminished position. I think Harry and Meghan were basically, controversial. I think they were used. Used for their fame, notoriety, position that they obtained whilst being in the royal family. Harry being a son of a reigning monarch, Prince of the United Kingdom, 5th in line to the throne, Councillor of State, a royal duke. That is position. Also using that notoriety that they have garnered for themselves since stepping back, where basically, you know, the Oprah, the Spare, parts of the documentary, little bits of Meghan's podcast, all about bashing the royal family. So I think Kevin Costner was quite shrewd in inviting them, because he knew that the attention was going to be there. He knew that, you know, basically, if Harry and Meghan had not been at that event, I wouldn't have even known that event would have happened. I doubt very much the British press would have even covered the event. So it definitely got the event out there. It created publicity. I think Kevin Costner was using them because I'm not quite sure that Harry and Meghan are going to get anything from it particularly themselves. Yes, they got pictures, they got paparazzi, they got press. I mean, in terms of the microphone faux pas, it's questionable whether or not it was good press. But as the saying goes, all press is good press. I mean, it's certainly, you know, it keeps their likeness in the media. It keeps people like me talking about them because they're giving us something to talk about. I spoke at length in the previous video, I think it was the previous one, about Meghan and Harry trying to kind of change the press, when actually what we need to change is the consumption of what the press puts out. If you haven't seen that video, go check that one out. But no, I think it shows their diminished position, because if, for example, William and Catherine were invited to a charity event, it would be them representing the country, because as a position as a working royal, they would be representing the whole country. So they don't necessarily get anything out of it personally, they just represent. Whereas Harry and Meghan are definitely, everything they do is to kind of get something back. Even the philanthropy work, of which, what actually have they really done in 2023? I know people can reel off a whole list of things they've done, you know, since stepping back, but actually, I'm not entirely sure what they have done in 2023. Again, I'm asking that as a genuine question. If someone does know, please put it out. But I don't think people are genuinely interested, really, in Harry and Meghan's charity work. They want... Meghan was feeding the press what they wanted. The legs, the clothes, everything was kind of being fed. So I think that their position is being diminished. They are definitely now a commodity, and they are at the hands of those who can consume them, i.e. people more famous, more powerful and more rich than themselves. They find themselves going down the same kind of power searching lane as Prince Andrew did. Prince Andrew, you know, befriended powerful, rich people because of the influence. And in turn, powerful, rich people befriended Prince Andrew because of the perceived royal connection and connections that being a royal afforded him, or rather they perceived it afforded him. Whereas with Harry and Meghan, now that they are distanced, they don't have those, you know, those links in. So they are very much a commodity. They are basically being hired out just to get publicity for an event. They weren't even expected to speak. I mean, that's how much of a commodity they were. Or maybe they wanted to charge for speaking. Although then again, Meghan's eagerness to grab the microphone kind of showed that I just don't think they were asked. And it just goes to show their commodity. William and Catherine, for example, at an event, at a charity thing, it would be on behalf of the nation. So there would be no, they wouldn't have to justify their reasons for being there because they wouldn't personally make any money off it. So they are definitely being diminished. It's almost like they've kind of thrown themselves out to the walls, and that's the position that they now find themselves in. And I know that this conversation is going to spark a lot of debate in the comment section, which I encourage, always have done healthy debate, as long as people aren't rude and mean and unkind to each other. So I do encourage your comments on this. It just, that Kevin Costner fundraiser just kind of raised, it just looked, for the first time, it really looked like Harry and Meghan were sort of there for hire, if you like. That's what I'm trying to get at. It really looked, for the first time, they looked diminished. And of course, their influence in terms of being ex-royals is diminishing, you know, month by month by month. And now I think and feel it's really starting to show. Right, next thing I want to talk about, we'll move on to the real royals. Alice bands. Now, we've seen Catherine, the Princess of Wales, wearing these Alice bands. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. So we've seen these Alice bands being used for a number of years now. And they've kind of become almost like a staple. So Catherine has taken on that kind of royal tradition of wearing hats, and she's dabbled with fascinators. But over the last, 3-4 years, these Alice headbands that are almost a little bit tiara-like have been used. Now, back in the 80s, Sarah Ferguson used to wear them all the time. She always used to wear bows in her hair. And it's kind of making a comeback. Not so much in the 80s way of doing it, but definitely Catherine is bringing back these Alice headbands. So let me know in the comments, have you been inspired to wear an Alice headband? But some of the more ones that she's worn recently, like they're kind of big and chunky and velvety. She wears them quite a lot during the winter months to match a coat or to match her shoes. They're used to kind of bring an outfit together, but they also serve a practical function of keeping the hair off the face. And they also look really stylish as well. So you still get to see a lot of the hair, you still can see the face for photographs, but you still have something on your head that looks kind of royal and very dressed up and very adult and very smart. So let me know what you think. And I really, really loved, of course, the kind of headband piece, sort of flower crown, if you like, that she wore for the coronation. So let me know about the rise and rise and rise of Alice bands. Do you think that Catherine will continue with them, or do you think she'll kind of change to something else? And also the importance of Alice bands with respect of there not being the usage of tiaras as much anymore. It's almost like a substitute that's become acceptable. I think tiaras are seen, if they're worn too flippantly, as being a little bit too OTT, a little bit maybe in bad taste, considering we have, you know, all these financial kind of crises and cost of living crisis going on. Although, on saying that, we do have a state visit planned, a new one announced. I think it's for November, and it's expected to be white tie, so we will hopefully see some tiaras. Hopefully we'll get to see some ones that have been worn previously by Her late Majesty now being worn by other members of the family, and maybe we'll get to see a new King Charles family order debuted for the first time. I think that would be really, really nice to see. Catherine, on recent visits, has also disclosed that Princess Charlotte, is very much into dancing, tap and ballet. We know from previous years that Prince George also was into ballet. So we have quite, you know, a dancing family. And of course, the late Princess Diana also was very much into ballet and dancing. It was a passion. So I think those genes have been carried on through the family, and it would be really lovely to see, you know, where that kind of takes the royal children. No mention of Prince Louis being into ballet or tap. Next, I want to talk about Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen. So she's basically retiring, and of course she took the helm of Alexander McQueen after Alexander McQueen's sad passing, and she was at the helm when, of course, Catherine, you know, used Sarah Burton designing for McQueen for her wedding dress, and we had this iconic wedding dress. And I think of all the modern royal wedding dresses that we've seen, Catherine's is still the most kind of iconic, most recognisable dress. Of course, I think Diana's will always be the most amazing, recognisable dress. But in modern times, I'm talking about, I think, well, more recent times, I think that hers is the most recognisable. And of course, Sarah Burton has been legendary at McQueen. Who they're going to have to replace her, I don't think that's been announced, so I'm not quite sure what direction that's going to be. But I want to talk about, Catherine has favoured Sarah Burton's designs for Alexander McQueen for many, many, many years now since her wedding. She's turned to McQueen for so many occasions. And I think if I was Catherine, I'd be thinking, oh my goodness, Sarah's retiring. What am I going to do? Because obviously when someone else takes over, they might take the designs in a different direction. I think that Sarah Burton will still work with Catherine in some capacity. We don't even know whether or not Sarah Burton is thinking of setting up her own label. She might even set up, you know, Sarah Burton as a label. If she does, then I think that, of course, Catherine will follow and she'll be wearing Sarah Burton designs for sure. If Sarah Burton doesn't retire, doesn't start a new business and does actually retire, I still think that she may be tempted to make some designs for Catherine. Who's to say that Sarah Burton hasn't even been pinched by Catherine to be a kind of in-house designer? Don't know. Very much in the same way that Angela Kelly, although Angela Kelly wasn't a big famous designer, but Angela Kelly was kind of in-house. And of course, you know, it would be quite a good, you know, long-term career for Sarah Burton. Not as lucrative as having her own label, but it's whether or not she wants the hassle of setting up her own label. So that's also a possibility. But anyway, McQueen bids farewell to Sarah Burton, but I'm hoping that we'll still get to see some of her amazing creations on Catherine, because she always looks absolutely incredible in them. Catherine was also today seen at an engagement for special needs children. Putting her specialist knowledge of the early years into various educational settings is really important, and it's very important not to forget those with special educational needs. And of course that could mean people with conditions, disabilities, ADHD, autism, all those different things can be are incorporated into special educational needs setting. And it's important not to forget those people, those children, especially in the early years. And I think it's very important that Catherine gets to see first-hand experience like what she is gaining on these visits of what the struggles are in the early years for these special educational needs children. So I think that was very important. It was really lovely to see her. She always kind of lights up and glows when she's around children, and in particular the early years settings. She always kind of seems to glow, and that was really nice to see. So well done, Catherine, for that. That's all my points talked about today. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, mwah to you all, and goodbye.